That the only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
Hello and welcome to the podcast at the intersection of faith and fear, where every week we discuss what scares us in order to find what saves us. This is the Fear of God, found on the internet at thefearofgodpodcast.com. This, unbelievably, is our final episode of the year, our final of 2020, our final episode of 2020. And yes, fiends and foggers, we came to party like it's 1990 because, oh, what an innocent time that now feels like. Give me Y2K any day of this year. I am one of your hosts, Nathan Rouse, here to the first ever Fear of God staff New Year's Eve party. And with me is your other host, Reed Lackey. What's up, baby?
Oh my God. I don't know what to
Reed.
Yeah.
We are we're already a pretty unconventional podcast. Just ask
I'd agree.
the bona fide Christians who try to listen to us every now and then. We are an unconventional podcast. I almost said podcast. That'd been funny. And we've got an unconventional episode for all of the foggers. A veritable smorgasbord of guests is with us. Beginning.
I'm so excited.
I am too. Should we just hold the anticipation for the audio listeners
for the next hour?
Oh, yeah.
Just
so
wait.
how are you doing, Reed?
Wait. You know what?
Okay,
Let me think about it.
Right, getting right along. Foreign correspondent and favorite Canadian named Vera Goudie. Ladies and gentlemen, Vera Goudie. Vera, thank you for being on the show today.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me again. This is exciting.
It's a delight and a thrill. Also joining us is artist extraordinaire, and does he ever love that Joker? Ladies and gentlemen, Jacob Hunt, last featured on our Joker episode.
Howdy.
Howdy. Thank you, Jacob, for being with us. Resident everyman and occasional wild card, Andy Whitfield, sporting that pandemic hairstyle going on. I dig it. Also, Pontypool's favorite son and himself a brand new daddy, Blake Collier, well lit, I might add, well lit.
Yeah. How's it going, guys?
And last, but certainly not least, is continuity guru, man with all the plans, the one and only. His name dropped more times on the show than me or Reed. It is Steve. Steve, welcome back to the show, my friend.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yes,
Amen.
Absolutely. Welcome to everyone, FoG family. Guys, we hope to have a lot of fun. I think that's in the offing. And out of a desire to just get the party started, we do have one more guest. Ladies and gentlemen, making his last appearance, foreseeable future, it is Lackey the Listicle, my occasionally listless list-making lackey.
Hi, everybody.
So Lackey the Listicle, we've got a whole just cornucopia of friends here today.
We do, man. It is so good to see
you're
everybody.
Lackey the Listicle. I needed a Lackey the Listicle response.
Oh, you're right. It's so pleasant to see everybody and to be in this wonderful little Brady Bunch collection of Zoom faces everywhere.
This is a very 2020 moment happening right here.
It is.
So,
it's true.
Listicle, I want us to go through. Typically, we do the top 10 listener voted horror films of the year.
Not this time.
But in the spirit of 2020, why not?
Mm.
Why not do the top 20? Because
you know what?
Feels,
that feels like a brilliant. I'm not going to talk like this the whole time.
Okay,
that feels like a brilliant. Yeah, now I can drop it. Now I can go back to. I can be me. You're going to allow me to be me on this
Please
show.
be you.
So no.
It's your party.
It felt appropriate, being that we just apparently love the number 20 this year for our final installment of hashtag 2020 and the last episode of 2020. We're going to do the top 20 of 2020. So for the sake of time and a little bit of brevity, I'm going to just roll through the numbers 20 through 11, and then our wonderful guests are going to chime in. We're going to briskly go through 20 through 11. So here's what I'm going to do. When I say the name of the movie, we'll just do everybody just chime in. I'm going to say, has anybody seen this? and then just yell yes if you have. We don't really have time to give reviews
It's like
on
a
it.
good little liturgical call and response. I like it.
Yes, just it's like a yes, it's like a responsive reading. So, if you've seen these films, then you can just shout up yes. I'm also going to be noting where listeners can find these films. But it was interesting. There were a couple that I'll mention before we dive into the list. There were a couple that didn't quite make the top 10. They've made some other lists. So just to be aware, listeners, the film Possessor is not going to be on the top 10, top 20. The Dark and the Wicked, She Dies Tomorrow, the film Run, The Grudge, and the most recent Freaky also did not quite make the top 20 this time around. But what did, starting in at number 20, is written, directed by Brett Pierce and Drew T. Pierce. It is The Wretched, available on Hulu and on video on demand. Has anybody seen The Wretched? I have.
I've seen it.
Andy.
Oh.
All right. No, lots of people haven't. Okay. All right. So next up, number 19, written and directed by Josh Rubin. It is a film called Scare Me, available on Shudder and video on demand. Who has seen this one? Bunch of shaking heads. I've seen this. I've actually seen everything on the top 20. So except for one
Wow.
film.
Okay. Wow.
So, but oh. Okay. So
At least give us something like this if any of us wants to check these out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. All right. So yeah, I would recommend The Wretched. I would recommend Scare Me. Next up on the list, number 18 is The Babysitter Killer Queen, which is directed by McG, who also directed the first one, which was just called The Babysitter. And both of those films are available only on Netflix. Has anybody seen these? Enjoy them? No? Lots of shaking heads? I enjoy them both. I like them both. All right. So number 17, which we more regularly talked about a couple weeks ago, I think, co-written and directed by Dave Franco. It is The Rental, available to rent on video on demand. Who has seen The Rental?
I have not. I keep meaning to rent. I thought about buying it, but I was like, nah.
Nah, worth renting. Worth renting. Okay. So next one is co-written and directed by Josh Boone. He of the much more recent drops today as of this recording, The Stand miniseries, available to rent on video on demand. The New Mutants. Who's seen The New Mutants?
Yes, I have.
Andy,
Yes.
Jacob. Yeah. Okay. The rest of them no, but Andy and Jacob give it a thumbs up.
And Nathan, who said
I
yes.
forgot about you.
Yeah, it happens.
I'm just gonna give a blanket no to all of the 20 to 11.
Yes.
Like no.
The New Mutants is good. It's good.
Yeah. Okay, number 15, the only film on the top 20 I have not seen, written and directed by Jim Cummings. It is The Wolf of Snow Hollow, and available to rent on video on demand. Who has seen The Wolf of Snow Hollow?
I loved it.
You know,
oh, Blake loved it.
Am I
That's
wrong?
great.
Reed, didn't you just 2 minutes ago say I've seen the top 20?
He did.
I think.
Except one.
yeah.
He said except one.
Oh,
Yeah, 'cause-
okay.
Oh.
Okay.
See,
That's what Vera's here for, to
listen.
keep us
Yeah,
straight.
yeah.
Yeah.
I forget you. You don't listen to me. That's what happens. So-
Right. I'm sorry, what?
Okay. Okay. So that was number 15. Number 14, co-written by beloved on the show Damon Lindelof and directed by Craig Zobel. It is The Hunt, available to rent on video on demand outlets everywhere. Who has seen The Hunt?
Yeah.
Blake?
That's one of the last ones I saw in the theater.
Well,
Pour a cold one out. Pour a cold one out. Okay.
Rip.
Number 13, written and directed by Carlo Mirabella Davis. It is Swallow, available to rent on video on demand. Who's seen this? Anybody?
It
Fascinating
might be
film.
on Hulu as well. When
Oh,
I was
really?
looking at
Okay.
when I was looking it up last night because somebody posted a photo of it. It
okay.
said it was on Hulu, so it could be on
okay.
Hulu.
Okay. Oh, thanks for that heads up. No, awesome. So that was Swallow, number 13. Number 12, co-written and directed by Remy Weeks. It is His House, available only on Netflix. Who has seen His House?
I have seen that, yes.
I've seen half of it.
Oh, lots
It's
of people.
on my list.
it's a big house,
Oh,
Andy. It's
okay.
a big house.
Yeah. No, it's
Strong
not.
Strong possibility. This is my only comment on the 20 through 11. Strong possibility His House might be my favorite horror film of the year. Just saying that. But Highly
Shots
recommend.
fired.
Shots fired, but it is available only on Netflix. His House was number 12. Number 11, before we begin to roundtable this and have a little bit more discussion about it, number 11, co-written and directed by Jeff Baena. It is Horse Girl, available also only on Netflix, starring Alison Brie, who I also believe co-wrote the film. So that was your number 20 through 11. Now we can feel a little bit of room to stretch and have a chat or two about the top 10. So Nathan, why don't you kick us off with number 10?
Well, thank you, Reed, for that rundown. So number 10 on the listener voted Fear of God top 20, top 10 now horror of 2020 is Host, co-written and directed by Rob Savage. This is the only entry shot, released, and set during the pandemic, available on Shudder and video on demand. It is Host. Anybody see Host? I did. I saw Host. Anybody else?
I did too.
No?
Yeah.
It's pretty good. It's good. You have to check it out.
I like it a lot. Best thing about it, it's an hour long.
Yeah.
Full
glorious.
film,
Very nice.
full story, but it's an hour long. That's great. Highly recommended. Looks very much like what we're seeing right now. Like that's
Indeed.
Like just,
I keep
yeah.
waiting.
So it's
For-
like friend
Well,
request.
that doesn't bode well.
Blake, that was impressive. Yes. How did you do that movie magic?
And no, Andy, from what I understand, it is nothing like friend request. But
A little bit
Now-
like Unfriended.
it is a little bit
Yes.
like
Yeah.
Unfriended. It does feel a little bit like Unfriended.
Vera, will you take number 9 for us?
I will. Number 9, first movie on the list that I've seen.
There you
The
go.
Platform. Directed by, and I'm so sorry if I butchered this name, Galder. That guy.
Yeah. Works for me.
Oh, anyway. It debuted directly onto Netflix in March, and it's available on Netflix.
Awesome.
Yep, absolutely. I liked this film. Did anybody else see it?
I loved it.
I liked it.
It's
I
probably
liked
my
it a lot.
favorites.
Yeah,
I did
thought
not.
I thought it was really strong. It is tough to watch in
Mhm.
places. It's very
Did you not
uncomfortable.
like it, or you did not see it?
I did not see it.
But no, it's a challenging movie. Tough to sit through at times, but I thought it was very, very good. Very strong film. All right, Blake, how about you hit us with number 8?
Yeah, so your number 8 is the Underwater, directed by William Eubank, one of the other horror films I got to see before the pandemic hit. And it is available on HBO Max and VOD. Has anyone
All right.
seen Underwater besides me?
I have.
The
Jake,
Yeah. Yeah, I thought.
you
It's the one that takes place
It was
underwater.
the one underwater.
I think I saw that one. So we don't
Kristen
have
Stewart,
to.
right?
What was that?
Kristen Stewart in it, right?
That is correct. That is absolutely correct. So I will be respectful of the listeners who have not seen it. I will say that there is a conceit to the film that I found the film like okay. I thought it was all right.
Mhm.
The conceit to the film, which I will not reveal here, and no, it's not a major twist. It's just a conceit. The conceit to the film I found really exciting, and I
Yeah.
thought it was thrilling, and honestly took a film that would otherwise be largely forgettable. And when this conceit is revealed, I got very excited, and so yeah, and it is not like a traditional twist where like,
No.
oh, the movie's
No.
something else. It's just something they
They
reveal.
weren't
late-
underwater at all.
right. It's just something they reveal
No,
late in the film.
I totally agree with that. And
Yeah.
it seems like Kristen Stewart was in it seems like Kristen Stewart was in a completely different film from everyone else in the movie.
Yeah, no, I completely
She was like
agree.
super like focused, and everyone else was like, "Hey, let's have a good time."
right. It's like everybody trying to be so campy.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
I feel
absolutely.
her pain.
All right. So Andy, why don't you hit us with number 7?
We Summon the Darkness, directed by Mark Myers.
That's right.
And do you want me to say the rest of it?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. There is.
Festival 2019, but no, wait, hold on.
Yeah, no, that's
Festival 2019, but dropped to streaming in April 2020. It's available on Netflix and video on demand.
You saw this, didn't you, Andy?
Yeah, you just
I saw it last night because I thought we were supposed to be watching them.
Well, I'm proud of you. I have not seen it, so you're already one step ahead.
What'd you think, Andy?
Oh, it was so good. I'm so
It was
happy I
fun.
watched it. It was really fun. And
Yeah.
it's got a cool twist. And I thought it was great.
Yeah. No, I thought it was very, very fun.
They're all underwater.
They're all underwater. Yes.
Oh, and
Everything else on the list takes place underwater.
Right.
All
Yes.
of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the twist.
and it's got Johnny Knoxville in it.
It does.
Hey.
In a very unconventional role for him, I might
Yes,
add. Yeah,
yeah.
it's true. Yeah, no, it's true.
All right.
The-
How about
Okay.
number 6?
so number 6, Vera, hit us.
It's me. Vivarium, I think is how you say it. Co-written and directed by Lorcan Finnegan, and it was a festival release in 2019, but it dropped direct to Prime in March of 2020, and it's available on Amazon Prime, not Canada. I checked, and video on demand.
That
You can't win
stinks.
at everything.
Yeah, we
They win it enough.
on availability of things to stream. It's awful.
That's becoming more and more apparent the more we talk. I'm just like, oh man, I was looking so forward to my grand exodus to Canada, and now I'm like, I'm not so sure.
I love that. That's the deal breaker.
Like, hey, but you can't stream
Free
anything.
healthcare? No, your movie.
I was gonna say,
sucks.
yeah.
That's right.
Oh man,
Very important.
so much was just said with so few sentences. Beckley, how about
Wait,
number?
wait.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. What?
Has anybody else seen Vivarium?
I have.
You
I
have,
saw
it.
Jacob?
What was this one about? Was this the house one?
Yeah.
Eisenberg?
Yeah,
Yeah.
the creepy neighborhood.
Yeah, where he's
Yeah,
digging
yeah.
the hole in the front yard. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw 15 minutes of it.
Oh, okay. My man. So no, that's yeah, it was, I mean, it was pretty good. I was honestly a little surprised to see it rank as high in this
Yeah,
list, especially with the quality of some of the ones below it. But there's a little bit of just accessibility and what people have seen and stuff like that kind of escalates it up. But no, it's, I mean, it's good. Yeah, I thought it was interesting. I think it was a bit more interesting than it was enjoyable, if that's a fair thing to say. All right, now by all means, Stephen. Sorry to have cut you off. So number 5.
It's called Relic. This is co-written and directed by Natalie Erica James, available to rent only on VOD. I've heard great things about this film. I have not seen it myself. It's a daughter, mother, and grandmother are haunted by a manifestation of dementia that consumes their family's home. I've heard some raves around the time it came out. Maybe that's why a lot of people saw it, even though it wasn't on any of the subscription services. I saw a lot of raves by foggers in the Facebook groups, and by all accounts, Emily Mortimer, actress, was excellent in it.
Yeah.
And now, if it's a remake of the 1997 film The Relic, I'm all for it because I love that movie. No? Okay.
You're going in with a little disappointment then.
There is not a museum in this one. Not a museum.
Not a creature feature.
No, unfortunately not.
Well,
but
okay, no spoilers.
So maybe. No spoilers here.
Who else has seen it?
I saw it.
Yeah. Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, I thought it was really strong. Well deserved with its place on the list. It's a really strong film. I thought there was a time I thought if something was going to challenge our number 1, it might be Relic, because exactly what Steve mentioned, that like there's a ton of praise. Most people who see it really laud it tremendously.
Stuck the landing.
Yes.
Landing.
Yes. Agreed. Jacob, number 4. Why don't you hit us?
We got The Vast of Night, co-written and directed by Andrew Patterson. I think you guys should look up his photo because his beard is insane. It was in Festival 2019, but dropped direct to Prime in May of 2020. Available only on Amazon Prime.
This is a fantastic movie.
Yeah.
Who's seen it?
Who's seen it?
I've seen it.
I've seen it.
Yeah.
What's it about?
The
'Cause
Vast.
I may have seen it. Is this
Mexico?
is this the one with Helen Hunt?
Mm-mm.
No.
No, then I haven't
No.
seen it.
No. This is these are about a pair. One person is an actual radio DJ. Another person is a switchboard operator. That evening, they get a strange sort of signal coming through the switchboard, and that spirals them into an impromptu investigation. This is an exciting movie. I don't want to say too much about it right now because I can almost guarantee you money on the table Fear of God is probably going to be covering this at some point in 2021.
It's a movie that it's not what it's about; it's how they do what they're about. I mean, it's pretty dang impressive.
So Pontypool 2.
I mean, it has some resonances with that.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Yeah, I loved it. I love the cinematography and just the way the camera moves through everything. I remember a lot of tracking shots.
The tracking shot,
The whole thing takes place in one night.
Yes.
The past of that one night.
Yeah.
And in just a couple of hours over the course of that evening too. Like it's it's the kind of film that just makes me excited about watching films because it's so different. And the story is really compelling. And I'm delighted that it's as high up on the list as it is because I think it well deserves it. And listeners, if you've not seen it, please check it out. Okay, so I'll hit us up with number 3. Speaking of just impressive stylings and probably some of the strongest visuals of anything on this list. Number 3 is Gretel and Hansel, directed by Oz Perkins, which is available to rent on most video on demand platforms. I thought this was a pretty incredible film. I think the thing I loved the most about it was its visual stylings, but who else saw it?
I did.
Hey, Vera!
It's my number 1 of the year.
Wow.
That's your number 1 of the year?
Of horror. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
I thought it was an absolutely fantastic film. Great sort of alternate take on the Hansel and Gretel mythology. Strong performances, strong script.
It and Relic have been neck and neck the whole year.
Like a different kind of cookie than ginger.
It is a different. No, macarons. They completely pivoted away from cookies. And it's all just macarons. Yes.
I'd love to see some marzipan in there.
Yeah. This would be your kind of flick, Jacob. Number 2 on the list, how appropriate, is not for the film. I haven't seen the film. So is The Lodge, written and directed by Severin Fiala and Veronica Franz or Franz. Hans and Franz will pump you up. This debuted on the festival circuit in 2019, then theatrically in 2020. It's available on Hulu and video on demand, and I have not seen The Lodge, nor have I stayed there. Anyone who's seen The Lodge other than Reed? Anybody?
I think I've seen it.
Yeah. This is the
15 minutes at least.
This is the
What is it about?
So this is about there's an element to the plot that I don't want to spoil, but what you need to know to remember if you've seen it is 2 children staying with the fiance of their father. And they're staying in a winter cabin that they have. The father had to leave for a few days to take care of something.
Yeah. I've
Also
seen that.
known as a lodge.
As a lodge, that's right.
It reminded me of the daughter movie with
Hereditary.
With the coat. She wore the coat. Black coat daughter. The black coat son.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I haven't seen that one either.
And so The Lodge is the follow-up. I don't know if it was the immediate follow-up, but it's another film from the directors of Goodnight Mommy. So if people remember Goodnight Mommy and what Good Night Mommy. So but if you remember, the kind of tone and that you're going for there, they definitely have a comparable sort of experience in this. Strong filmmaking, dark and heavy, but really, really effective. I was very impressed with The Lodge. I thought it was great, and I highly recommend it. Again, it's heavy, but I highly recommend it. All right, and that brings us, without any further ado, to our number 1. We went ahead and spoiled this for you last week, so I won't belabor the point. Written and directed by Leigh Whannel. It is The Invisible Man, starring Elizabeth Moss, available on HBO Max right now and video demand platforms everywhere. It is going to be our featured conversation for today's episode, and that, ladies and gentlemen, is your top 20 of 2020, your favorite horror films. So, Nathan, why don't you go ahead and pull up the top box office?
There's not much to pull up, but it's here.
I can imagine. I haven't read anything about what you're going to pull up because I don't know. I'm just like, I don't know what they considered and what they,
But there was a lot in the top box office because they were the only ones that could show at
it's not
drive-in theaters.
It's not, but it's not about it's not about what released. It's about how much it made comparable to previous years. So
Trolls
yes.
World Tour and Sonic the Hedgehog. Like those are the only two I can think of.
Well, interestingly, but see, this is what's interesting. It's funny you bring that up, Vera. So looking here, Trolls World Tour is number 18. And it's because remember, this is not
Came out right at the pandemic.
No. It's not about when it came out. It's about box office.
Right.
There was no box office for it. So
Right.
Trolls World Tour was everywhere, but in the box office.
Right.
So this is okay. So this is wildly depressing for both this year and Reed. I mean, what do we? We've been forecasting this all year that this is where we were going to land. So, in brief, 10 through 6, number The Call of the Wild, which is Harrison Ford and Chewbacca. Then number 9 was Onward, and we'll get to some of these box office numbers. Number 9 was Onward. Number 8 was today's featured film in The Invisible Man. Number 7 was Harley Quinn, Birds of Prey, whatever the name of it ended up being. Number 6 was a movie called The Legend of Deification, which at first glance looked like defecation, but is actually deification. There you go. Come on. Now, numbers 5 through yeah, Beckley. What's funny is I'm pointing at Beckley on my screen, but I don't know if he's in the same position on everyone else's screen. All right. So just for some comparison's sake, because this is fun and depressing all at the same time, 2019, the number 5 movie on the list made $1.1 billion.
Okay.
Okay. The number 5 movie of 2020. Okay, remember, 1.15 billion. The number 5 list made 240 million.
Oh Lord.
240 million. That's
Mulan.
That was Doolittle.
Doolittle. Doolittle.
Tony Stark.
Doolittle did little, didn't it?
Didn't it ever? Number 4 is, yes, Vera, Sonic the Hedgehog, zooming to a staggering $310 million.
Wow.
That's good.
Number 3 on the list, and unfairly charged with saving the entire theater-going industry, was Christopher Nolan's Tenet.
It's number 3.
300. I know. It's only at number 3. Well, that's because it released in the dead heat of the worst it was.
Yeah, that's true.
Didn't even release, pre-times. But it made 361 million. Number 2. Anybody got a guess at what number 2 is?
Is it the one with Jacob Tremblay?
I've got a guess for number 1, but I don't have a guess for number 2.
Okay.
I guarantee you, you're wrong on number 1. Whatever your guess is, you're wrong. Number 2, because it'll make sense in a minute. Yeah. Number 2 on the list is Bad Boys for Life.
That was going to be my guess for number 1.
Oh my gosh, this year is so long.
That came out in January?
Listen, 426 million. The number 2 movie of 2019 was The Lion King at 1.6 billion. That's staggering. So before we get to the number 1 of 2020, the number 1 of 2019 was, as we mentioned last week, Avengers Endgame with almost $3 billion, 2.8.
Lord have mercy.
$2.8 billion. The box office for the top film of 2020 numbers was 461 million. Who's good at math? How much less is that than almost 3 billion? That's a hell of a lot less.
Yeah.
Humorously, the number 1 film is a movie called The 800, which was not even a English language film because our box office has done so poorly. It was released from the acclaimed filmmaker behind Mr. Six. Anyone seen Mr. Six? Comes a riveting war epic. In 1937, 800 Chinese soldiers fight under siege from a warehouse in the middle of the Shanghai battlefield, completely surrounded by the Japanese army. Sounds kind of cool. And,
it does.
More people saw that than any American film in the movie theater this year.
No kidding.
So what was it called again?
The 800.
The 800.
Looks like a Chinese
300,
film.
but 500 more.
That's what I thought. I was thinking of it. It's like we have more. We have 500 more than that other movie that you're thinking of.
I kind of wanted that to be kind of fun, but it really is just depressing. And And between that and Warner Brothers setting Hollywood on fire with shifting everything to HBO Max, are we going to the theater anymore?
This is the death of cinema.
It's hard to
Well,
it's hard
of cinema,
to say.
of theater going, maybe.
No,
I
I
mean,
don't believe that.
Disney seems pretty convinced that they're going to get people back in the theater come May at least.
For Black Widow.
Yeah, as in they're
okay.
still releasing, or at least have scheduled to release 3 films next year: Shang-Chi, Black Widow, and the Eternals, and Spider-Man. So 4.
Oh, Spider-Man's going to come out?
Yeah.
Yeah. Which
Wow.
if
Well,
they
I didn't
are-
know they were that far in filming.
I didn't either. That's interesting. But if they're
Well,
right,
basically, you just have to look at someone in the MCU and assume they're in Spider-Man 3, and that's how you build the cast list.
I have an
Except-
announcement. I actually am in Spider-Man 3. I just want to let everybody know.
And even actors
Hot off the
from
presses.
previous Marvel MCU
Right,
movies. Yeah.
right.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that was sort of fun.
It was very 2020 fun, wasn't it?
So, what we've done the box office list. In an effort with the amount of participants we have gathered here, with the amount of friends we have gathered here, I did not want to just do the didactic go through the list, because that's going to be very long and maybe boring. So what I have done, in the spirit of party games and hanging out, is created a battery of questions. We're going to play the question game, and listeners are my participants in our conversation right now, don't know these questions. None of them are going to be that out of left field. But so I did want to shout out a couple of folks here. So I'm using dice to determine what your question is, Fogger, on the call. But more than that, I do want to friend of the show, and Matt Murray, who got me this pair of die. This is a specialty pair of die that Jacob Hunt will especially appreciate.
Oh,
because if you look
yeah.
closely, you'll see that
Aw.
the 6s on dice are Frank and Nathan's head. So that is
Oh, sweet.
particularly apropos. So the primary springboard of conversation, yes, was Invisible Man. Listeners, I asked the conversationalists to at least be mindful in their viewing of Invisible Man for our traditional likes, dislikes, scares, and themes. But these questions are relevant to the film Invisible Man. They are relevant to the year 2020. They're relevant to other media in general. So ostensibly, you're listening to an Invisible Man conversation, but it's just kind of like a whole bunch of stuff mixed in together here. Who was first on the list? It was going to be Ian, so I'm going to jump to Blake. Blake, do you feel like going first?
Sure.
So the rules of the game are very simple, and they are, I'm going to roll the die, ask you the question. You can, because some of these questions do require a little bit of thought. You can say, come back to me. All right. And then I'll just go up the list. I'm not going to drift too far before I do actually come back to you. If in the doing of the game, we find that there's some other fun variant we want to incorporate, maybe if you have an idea, we'll do that. But we'll do at least one round, maybe 2. And if we're feeling frisky, a 3rd. That way everyone gets at least a couple of questions in here. So Blake, I'm going to roll the die for you, buddy. How's that little baby?
I'm insanely excited about this. I'm not
You-
even going, and I'm excited for this.
I'm sorry. Blake, you got, why not?
That's my favorite question.
Critical error.
Why?
Just close.
No, I just did wrong. You got lucky boxcars here, which means you got double Frank and Nathan faces. You've basically kind of answered this, so this is a little bit of a gimme, but it is, what was the last movie you saw in the theater?
So I think the last one I saw was Bad Romance, which is an old 90s film that I saw at my local indie theater right before the pandemic hit.
Of course, you're the one to like completely decouple it from like current movies. You're like, you know what?
If you want to go for the last 2020 film,
Yes, let's
Boys
do
for
that.
Life, which I loved. So,
Yeah.
Which was what?
Bad Boys.
Bad Boys for Life.
yeah.
you couldn't purchase it. I'm sorry, you couldn't rent it via iTunes. It was just like
that sucks.
Yeah, so we didn't.
Yeah.
So there's that.
Yeah.
Who is next on the list? This is gonna. All right, Andy, you're next. All right. Let me roll. I'm just toggling between a couple of different screens here. So you rolled a 6. A 6. Consult your Invisible Man notes, Andy. Tell us about one of the scares on your list for Invisible Man.
I think the scariest part, or the scariest one, that if I remember correctly, were spoilers, right? Like people.
Sure. Yeah. We've all seen the movie.
Okay. Was when I think it was like his partner goes into Elizabeth Moss's friend's house and is in the invisible suit, and like everybody's going at each other. And the hallway. It was
the hallway fight. That's pretty brutal.
Yeah, that was pretty scary. Because it was pretty scary.
Because he's invisible.
He's invisible. You didn't know where he was gonna be, and then he just showed up. So
no.
Not to spoil the movie, but
it's in the name. It's in the name. Well, thank you. Yes, that would qualify well as a good scare. Vera, you are up next, my friend. You are 7. Tell us, Vera, one of your likes or dislikes from The Invisible Man.
I'm gonna go with a dislike, but it's not like a strong dislike. Because there was a lot to like about the movie, but this movie didn't have the pandemic. It was obviously made before the pandemic and released in the year of the pandemic. When the Invisible Man, who is invisible, stands behind Elizabeth Moss outside and he breathes and his breath comes out.
Yep. You were like,
Cold AF in Canada right now, and we all wear masks, and you can't see your breath with a mask on.
Yeah.
So Rob and I, my husband and I, were both just like, no, I don't buy it.
You know what's really funny about you highlighting that, and feel the freedom. It's a loose game here, so feel the freedom to interact with people's responses here. What's really funny about that scene is, one, they filmed it in Australia, so clearly that's fake breath in the air there. But 2, this struck me the very first time I saw it, and this would have been the third for this conversation. He only breathes once. I'm like, what?
That's what I said to Rob too. He was like, well, maybe he went back inside. And I was like, or did he just stand there and hold his breath? Like, I don't understand what's happening there.
That's a big ask that has to happen to buy that moment. It kind of works.
I think he would hold his breath.
Yeah, you could.
I mean, wouldn't that be like you're invisible and you see your breath? You're like, oh no, my whole thing is blown.
What kind of synapses have to fall apart when that happens and you see it? You're like, oh my God, wait a minute, I am invisible. Oh my God, what am I doing? That's gotta be real.
To prove that point, I have literally been holding my breath this whole time, and y'all didn't even know it.
No, we didn't. You were invisible. Blake, where'd you go? I do love this. Would theoretically be in response to a question, but I have that note on my list, Vera, and so I'll throw this out. I do love, much like our Paranormal Activity demon and the xenomorph from Alien, like I love just thinking about what the Invisible Man is doing in a given moment on screen. Like he's like that scene, like, what are you doing? Because when does he go to the bathroom? Does she turn around real quick and he kind of dodges? Like, I don't know. Is he like trying to bob and weave to get out of people's way?
Another dislike that I had was that nobody like windmilled at all in the movie. Like if I had a sneaking suspicion somebody was following me, I would constantly be trying to hit them or carry around.
I need the Invisible Man to exist in the real world just to see a meme of Vera from Canada just windmilling walking down the road.
Well, I feel like there's a couple of, and we obviously don't have to camp out here forever, but I feel like fine. If I had
forever would be a long time.
Sure. Forever's as far as I'll go. But if I had a major sequence of dislikes, I enjoy the film's the experience it takes me on in terms of like what it accomplishes thrill wise and narrative wise. There are a lot of logical leaps, not only the breath thing, but then when she throws the paint on him, which is a great scare. But when she throws the paint on him, there's a little paint splash at the bottom, but then he doesn't drip any of that as he makes his way to the sink. It all makes it to the sink.
Yeah, that's a powerful suit.
Not to mention the fact that he can get all of that paint off effectively to where he's still invisible.
And then he just leaves the water running. That was really funny. It's
just,
like,
right.
Either she's really dumb and bad at this, or he's really dumb and bad at this, or both.
Even from the opening scene, because there's a moment later when she's talking to her friend and her sister about why she's trying to get away from him. And she said, so that night I called you. And I can remember thinking back when I watched it this time, I was like, when did she call her? Like, because did she call her like earlier that day and say, hey, drive by at 3:45. Okay, I need you about 3:45 in the morning, or I need you about 4 a.m. to drive by. And like,
very well timed arrival.
Right. And like, what was she going to do if it wasn't like precisely that moment? And I get like,
she gone.
Probably a little bit of pre-planning and stuff, but there are a couple that is one thing that I will point at the film and being like, it has some logic leaps that do not quite hold up under scrutiny.
I mean,
none of which hurt
invisible man.
Yeah, but that actually makes sense. He's a leader in the field of optics.
Okay.
He's got all these cameras on there.
Yeah,
okay,
totally.
I buy that science.
And I think they go out of their way.
Sorry, go ahead.
I think they go out of their way not to really explain the science fiction so much, so that if you nitpick it, they can always come up with something to
right.
Yeah. Like you could say that the paint didn't stick to it because it's intentionally like a Teflon surface that reflects anything. Therefore, like dust can't show up, and then you're just instantly made visible.
I'll buy that for $1.
Yeah.
Beckley has an invisible suit. He's like, I mean, theoretically, these are the ways someone might do this.
He just fades from the view.
I mean, you wonder, like, is there a zipper on the suit too?
He just fades. That's great, Riri. All right. So, anyone else want to piggyback on the notion of breath?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that there are things that you can suspend when you're talking disbelief-wise when you're talking about an Invisible Man movie, but there were things that just weren't executed well in terms of that. Just around the invisibleness of the man.
Yeah.
All right, Beckley, you are up. I'm gonna roll for you, sir. You rolled an 8. 8 is okay. This is a non-Invisible Man related one. So if you need to pull a come back to me, we can do that. So your question, Stephen, and remaining could be for others as well. So be thinking if it comes to you. Despite the heaviness of the year, share something positive from your 2020. This is a Fear of God New Year's Eve party. We're talking about the year as well as the Invisible Man. Do you want to come back to you, or you want to answer?
Come back to me.
Okay, will do. I will go to whoever's next, which is Jacob. And while Beckley thinks on his answer, I knew this would happen at some point. Jacob also gets an 8. So Jacob, we can come back to you if we need to, are given the question, despite the heaviness of the year, what is something positive from your 2020? Do you want me to come back to you?
Nah.
Okay.
Positive of 2020 is kind of cool. Spending extra time hanging out with my wife while she was less employed.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
I mean, there was so much talk of how the added exposure time between couples, could go either way. So nice to see that we didn't drive each other crazy.
Went the good way. Yeah, yes, that is very positive.
Positive.
All right. Thank you for that, Jacob. All right. Who is next? Next is Reed. All right, Reed. You are up. You got an 8 as well. It's coming up 8s, everybody.
Wow.
Do you want me to come back to you? I can check in with Beckley and then come back if you want.
Why don't you check in with Beckley if he's ready and then come back to me?
Okay.
Stephen Beckley, what you got?
I think something positive is that myself and a lot of other people, we learned to use platforms like this, like Zoom and related online meeting and getting together programs, and that I use this a lot in my job. So it's a lot easier to schedule meetings and getting together when you don't have to travel and getting the same place physically. Yeah.
Thank you for that. This episode brought to you by Zoom online meeting. And you've got to go Zoom. All right, Reed, do you want to?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay.
So I want to echo what Jacob had said. I remember actively thinking multiple times through the year that this was a real crucible for like just family home dynamics. And I know, pivoting to the heaviness, I know there's a lot of people who didn't quite have this experience, but I feel like my wife and I have grown closer. I feel like we've grown more confident in our ability to be able to just navigate life together, life and parenting and jobs and all that kind of stuff, because it forces you to be in crisis, not only of what's going on in the world around you, but also just like how do you navigate finances when finances are unstable? How do you navigate parenting when now your child is stuck doing school online and everything? I've had to be simultaneously be a worker for my job and manager, which is my title, and lead people, and be stay-at-home dad because my wife goes and works. There it is. Because my wife goes and she works at a preschool, so she actually leaves to go attend to the children there, and then I had to be stay-at-home dad and part-time homeschool teacher, and I think it's been really positive to just recognize the strengths there for all of the difficulties that it has certainly brought about. Another positive that is going to sound really weird, I feel significantly more confident in some of the things that I think theologically, philosophically, whereas before I might have really been more inclined to sort of wishy-wash and be more appeasing to challenges from the other side of the perspective. I feel like 2020 has also been a crucible where people's true values and beliefs get on profound display, which for me has partially been a journey of really solidifying, no, this is how I really feel about this, and this is what I really think about this. And I think that's probably a very valuable thing to just have more firmly.
You are much more dogmatic these days.
I am indeed.
rigid, inflexible.
Yes.
Yeah,
I'm done
harsh.
with it. No more open mind.
No
okay?
more.
Shut the door.
No more Mr. Nice Guy. Yeah. No more Mr. Nice Lackey. Well, no, thank you for that. That is very appreciated. So it's me. I will roll. And I got 6. 6 is tell one of your scares from Invisible Man. It has not been mentioned yet, so I'm gonna steal it, but then everyone can pounce on it if you want. The restaurant scene is just insane. Yeah. I mean, when you watch this movie the first time and get to that scene, and this, to your point, Vera, the ways we could nitpick the logical consistency of Invisible Man, this is when they do it well, which is making you forget you're watching a movie called The Invisible Man and that he's anywhere and maybe everywhere, and all of a sudden, oh my God, your co-lead just had her throat cut in a public place and that knife goes right back into Liz's hand. That was startling and staggering and one of the best scares of the year to me. Any thoughts on the restaurant scene?
Just agreed.
Yeah,
just
I agree.
agreed. Yeah, It was great.
Thank you. It was very helpful.
Nailed it.
All right.
Nailed it.
What? Nailed it. Yes. Nice. All right. Back up. We're gonna recycle. We're gonna be here a while. We got.
All right.
We went through that pretty quick. All right. Vera, I think you're next. We're resetting here. So.
No, I didn't go first, but I'll go.
No, Blake went. Let me go to Blake. I know why I did that. So Blake, you got a 9. 9 times. Blake. Okay. Here we go. Feel free to come back if you need to, but what is a thematic idea from The Invisible Man that you would like to talk about or like us to talk about?
What one does with power when they think that they can get away with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Blake, so what does one do with power, Blake, when they think they can get away with it? Clearly some pretty wretched things.
It's not like we have any examples currently.
Right. Right.
I heard they snap. Like they just snap their fingers and half the world disappears.
Wow. Yeah, that's infinite power. Indeed.
There are precedents. Absolutely.
Precedents. Presidents. Huh?
Whoa,
Sounds like
whoa.
So
it sounds like one big
think
theme
about-
that carries over, right?
Yeah.
That carries over from the original Invisible Man.
Mhm.
That's true.
If you think about it, like the classic question of would you rather be invisible or would you want to fly? Like it's really not a question about the powers themselves. It's about the potential temptations behind those powers. It's like the psychology behind them. And so, what would you rather do? And I think I've always been drawn to the invisible, like being invisible, because I mean, just being able to be a fly on the wall for all sorts of random crap, like it would be fun. But I can see a world in which, like, that could go really sideways really quickly. So,
but isn't that and I'm going to do this, and all participants feel free to interject and intersect and but isn't that what's interesting? Because invisibility as a concept is pretty revealing, because what you were just making me think, I will do this, and I kind of slotted it a moment ago. When you have absolute power and conduct yourself as though nothing will impact, as though no paint will stick, as though no breath will be visible, you act with impunity. The reverse of that is true too, which is utter and absolute insecurity. Because the analogy you just used was fly on the wall. Okay, well, that's a very, not to get, therapy here, psychotherapy here, but that's a very small, a very shrinking, a very minuscule kind of vantage point that is different to me than what you said initially, which is absolute power wielded.
Yeah, and I would say that it would, in my mind, being a fly on the wall is allowing you to gather information about people or places or events that you could wield against those people or those institutions at a later date. So like it's small, like there's a small vantage point, but the effects of what you possibly see and the power you can wield over those people when they don't know it can be pretty sizable. So.
There's a I do not like this film, but one of the I don't care for it very much. I don't think it's a very good film, but in the Invisible Man concept is the Kevin Bacon starring Hollow Man from the 90s, or actually I think it might be early 2000s. I can't quite remember. But one of the only things that stands out to be about that film that I actually liked is a very clever line. It's a bit of a bumper sticker line and definitely a trailer line, but it's where Kevin Bacon's character, who he is the Invisible Man in that story, Kevin Bacon's character says, "It is amazing what you realize you can do when you don't have to look at yourself in the mirror." And I think that is a pretty, it's a concise way to talk about what do we do when we are beyond accountability? What do we do when we are beyond communal responsibility? And I think that's something that you could go all kinds of places, and I don't intend to do that in this statement, but the idea of who you really are and what you are really capable of when you are unbridled from the restraints of, people being able to see you, people knowing what you can do. And that is something that really shows us who we are and what we're about. I think we're witnessing some of it on social media, because while social media is not invisible, it is a cloak of sorts. There is this illusion that you can put forth a persona out into the world, and there's the illusion of privacy or the illusion of singular conversation. When in point of fact, people who have what they deem like keyboard courage, where they just say these bold things online, they may think, "Oh, I'm just addressing this individual right here," when in point of fact, they're blasting a megaphone for a very, very public audience. And anyway, it's again just to reinforce the point that when we feel that the restrictions have been removed, that is when we will begin to show who we really are and what we're really capable of, to sometimes impressive and sometimes alarmingly destructive effect. But yeah.
Yeah, to piggyback on what you just said, Reed, is it's the integrity thing. Who are you when nobody is watching, right? And speaking as like a female who is on the internet, and you had mentioned keyboard courage, but like also people who, the flip side of that, instead of like blasting a megaphone, use the anonymity or the invisibility to say whatever they want to say or do whatever they want to do without fear of there being repercussions because you cannot see who they are.
Right.
Right.
That's completely true. Absolutely. Yeah. No, it's a very, very good point. Very good
Awesome.
point.
Thank you guys. And I'm sure some of that will continue to percolate. Andy, you are up next. You got an 8, Andy. And Andy, like a couple of folks have already gotten, despite the heaviness of the year, what is something positive you would like to share about your 2020?
Kind of learning some coping skills for my mental health, with some issues that I've encountered over the past couple of months. It's been really great to not be in the public, if that makes sense, like not having to go out and pretend that I'm not suffering or not dealing with it, but I'm able to process it at home and with my family, as well as develop these skills so that when the pandemic is over and life becomes a bit normal, I think it'll be good. So mental health care has been really great for me.
Well, in transparency, I thought a little bit about you when I wrote this question, just because I was so proud of your offering on our Dead Zone conversation a couple months ago. So thank you for your transparency and your vulnerability and being willing to share that. Let me see, who is next? Now it's Vera. So you 6? That's right. Yeah. So you did. This is one of your scares from visit. Did you? Is that what you already had?
No.
What did you have already? Okay. You had the likes or dislikes. Yes. Okay.
Scares, I'm going to go with the whole opening sequence of the movie.
So good. So good.
Yeah. So tense. So good. So well done. Yeah.
The on that specific scene, 2 notes. One, I did glance through the IMDb notes on it, and an initial pushback to Whannel was more establishment of their scenario before that, and he was like, no, I just want it was a validation Moss on his part saying, no, she's gonna sell what I need. Is conveying very quickly what the state of this relationship is, and then the production, like the music and the cinematography, is going to do a lot of the heavy lifting of that. And to his credit, my wife, who typically flees this type of material, Invisible Man is one of the things I do love about it, is its kind of accessibility. And we watched it, and she was on pins and needles for that opening 10 minutes.
It's a really well done portrayal of what they tell women who are in abusive situations to do, like make an escape plan and put all the pieces in motion.
Wow.
Before you attempt to leave an abusive relationship. So I like right off the bat, I got exactly what they were doing. I understood why she had all of these things in place and the precautions that she was taking. And when she got to the road, like I understood that she had probably planned ahead and called somebody to come and get her, and that person was like it was really well done and just so tense.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, that culminates, pardon if I'm stealing anyone else's, but that culminates in one of the most startling moments of the movie is when he runs out of the woods.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
That is rough. Jacob, thank you for welcoming your feline to the party. All right. Beckley, you are up, my friend. You got one you already had, so I'm going to re-roll for you. Oh, of course, that just happened.
Dice are on the floor.
He's back. All right. So you got. All right. This is a very, very Beckley question. You got number 10. Number 10 on my little list here, Stephen. is what is a favorite Fear of God series, episode, or conversation that meant to you this year? Like, could there have been a more Steve Beckley question?
From this year?
Yeah, from this year.
Okay.
Steve was about to go back to year one. He's like, well, actually, still ruminating on.
I have.
I can come back to you if you want me to.
Yeah, why don't you come back? I'll go through the list of episodes here.
We'll do.
Nice.
We'll do. Jacob, you are up. So you got number 4. Okay, this is good. Jacob, share a favorite horror film you watched this year and what about it impacted you. I can come back if you need to.
Horror film. I'm sure I'll forget what might have been my favorite. I don't know, but I just watched Freaky, and since that didn't make the list, maybe that's a good one to mention. I mean,
I've heard good things.
I always love a horror comedy, and this was a well done one. Vince Vaughn's pretty hilarious.
Now, is that rentable? I haven't actually intentionally sought it out yet, but
theater at home status, so like the $20 thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but I've been tempted to drop the coinage for it though, because that director is the same director of Happy Death Day and Happy Death Day to You, which I love.
You do like those,
and so I've been really tempted. I haven't seen Freaky yet, but I've really wanted to, purely because of the director pedigree, because I've heard those other films so much.
Jacob,
you've heard what?
I've heard Freaky is good.
Yeah, I think Jacob didn't Jacob mention that? I can't remember when.
He did. It was a little freaky. That. Thank you, Jacob. Who is next on the list? It's Reed.
Oh, it's
Reed
me.
Is next.
Don't forget about going back to Beckley, but let me have.
Oh, you're right. I'm gonna ask Reed the question, then I'll go back to Beckley. Reed, tell us about this. Is the very Reed question.
Is
book
it
you read this year that meant something to you?
Ooh, a book.
While you want me to come back to you?
Yes,
go to Beckley.
Okay. Yeah, yes. Give Beckley a shot.
Beckley, you got a thought? Got an answer?
Almost here.
We will keep going down the list.
Yeah, keep going down.
I'll do that.
No, actually,
go Reed.
Yeah,
what's up?
I've got one. So, I had mentioned, I'll mention it again here in passing, like my favorite sort of book-related experience this year was when Ian, who I know was intended to be part of this conversation and had to back out somewhat suddenly, but when he shipped us the book, Becoming Friends, and it came in a package, I did not know it was on its way, and then suddenly my wife walks in and says, "Hey, you got something from somebody called On Your Left," and so it was just this huge culmination of a lot of delight, and I did really enjoy. I did love the book. But that book experience was really, really great. But I think for me, probably the favorite book that I read this year was that book that I had referenced on the show not that long ago by John Meacham, called American Gospel. And the way that John Meacham, as a historian, unpacks the threads, because so much of this year, in frustrating ways, mostly frustrating ways, so much of the social and political dialogue has been this weird amalgamation of religion and politics. And so that book brought a tremendous amount of ease and sanity to a historical perspective. I really liked the book a lot. It was very easy to read. And so it really kind of put into a more healthy place, I think, some of the historical context about this blending of religion and politics and separation of church and state, and were the founding fathers, intending for us to be a Christian nation, or, in conversations around public religion. It's a brief book that has a lot of great things to say about that subject. So that was a book that meant a lot to me this year, was American Gospel by John Meacham.
That's awesome. Thank you for that, Reed. Beckley, you got any? You want to jump in?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think
so. Your question, Beckley, just to refresh the listeners, was, what's a favorite Fear of God series, episode, or conversation from 2020 that meant something?
Yeah. No, this year, the series were, I think you only had 3 series this year, right? I guess your best of the previous year you started out with, and then you had the 2020, and In the Morning.
Yep.
I guess, and then the Halloween series as well. But the In the Morning was a very long series, but I think that the main takeaway I took from that series was the discussions on The Leftovers.
Yeah.
And I hadn't been as compelled to check out that series before then, and I'm very thankful that I finally was.
Good.
I love every moment of those conversations, and especially the final episode on the recap of season 3. I think that was a very heavy heavy conversation, and very influential to me.
Yeah. Well,
thanks,
awesome.
man.
No, that's very cool.
I even have, if you look at behind me on that bookshelf, I have a picture of from Lost, and another one of the two from the final scene in the final episode.
That's lovely. That's a little framed. Is that the picture? It's a little blurry and a little small on the screen.
Taped onto the frame there, but
is the top picture of Desmond and Penny?
Yeah.
And then the one below it is Kevin and Nora from the final thing. Oh, yes. That's wonderful.
That's lovely.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
I'm here.
Yeah, I love their relationship and following that.
That's awesome.
Good. Well, that's a very excellent, and I'm appreciative of it, Stephen. So it's my turn. It's my turn. Number 6. Tell us one of your scares from. I already did that one, right? I did the knife. Right?
You did that one. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Number 7. Tell us one of your likes, dislikes from The Invisible Man. I will pick on an easy one. I actually really think very highly of this film. So the fact that I'm naming a dislike is more just for fun, conversational. I don't love the runtime of this movie. It does, to me, it starts to drag a little in that second hour. I think for as strong as that first hour is, and it's excellent, and there's some really strong elements of the second hour, I kind of would like it to tighten up a little bit, Yeah. So that is a dislike on my part towards The Invisible Man, which is otherwise a really strong film.
You might have even tightened it up from what it was originally, because I watched some of the deleted scenes on the DVD. Yeah. So.
Oh wow.
Oh, as in there was a lot more.
Yeah.
I want to do another round of this, but I want to prep us all because a question that hasn't come up that may, by virtue of the fact that it might come up at all, I want us to spend some time with at the end of perhaps this round, presuming we don't do a 4th round. So the question I want us all to be thinking on as we go through this next round, that we can all share about afterwards, is what is something you're looking forward to? What is something you're looking forward to? So we're going to reset.
And the Invisible Man.
Nope. Just answer the question. Yeah. Answer the question how you see fit, Andrew. So we're going to start back up with Blake, who got number 8. Oh, Blake, number 8.
Aw.
Despite the heaviness of the year, Blake, what is something positive that happened in year 2020?
Well, I got to see Gretel and Hansel.
I figured that was going to be your main. I figured of all the things that happened to you, I figured that was going to be the top.
No. I now have a son, Seamus Carruth Collier.
Wonderful.
Wonderful.
He's adorable.
He is pretty cute, man.
What a wild time.
Oh man, I tell you what.
A wild moment in history to have a child. Indeed.
I wrote it down in my memory book. Blake had a baby on this day.
You are up. You have number 7. Tell us one of your likes or dislikes from The Invisible Man, Andy. You feel like you're sitting on some stuff for this movie. What's something you either liked or you disliked about The Invisible Man?
I like the ending.
What about the ending?
Well, that's up for interpretation, isn't it?
I'm gonna be obtuse.
Yeah,
mysterious.
No, that she becomes the Invisible Man or the Invisible Woman.
Yeah.
She
starts the Fantastic Four. Yeah.
She starts seeing Fantastic Four, but she escapes the situation. She sticks it to him, and and then is like, I'm gonna be invisible now.
Yeah.
And it opens the doors. Like, is she gonna go crazy, or what is
Did
she
she
gonna
keep
use her
the suit?
Yeah, what is she gonna use her powers for?
It is fun to think about in the
yeah.
in the alt version of Invisible Man, is because this is the thing I think about when that scene happens is does that suit fit? We don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, like, is it baggy? It's really funny to think that there's a baggy suited invisible person in the room when that slices his throat.
No, it's the suit is vacuum sealed, so whoever steps into it, it's
yeah, sure. Oh God.
Well, the thing is it comes down to the psychological question of if you could fly or be
invisible.
Which one
would you pick?
And she chose invisible when she could have flown so far.
On that note, Vera, it is your turn. Okay, this is good. This has not been asked yet. Vera, and feel free to ask to come back if you want. Share a favorite non-horror film or TV show you watched this year and why it might have been impactful.
Tiger King. No.
Horror.
I'll think about it. Can I think about it?
Okay, yes, you in fact can. Next would be Beckley. Beckley, let's see what yours is. Number 5. Beckley, tell us all right, tell us about a book you read this year that meant something to you.
I mean,
what you doing reading this year?
I read books for FoG, for the Fear of God.
Well, that's yeah. Did you read something? Did you read something wicked?
And something wicked, yeah.
And what did you think of those 2 books, Mr. Beckley?
They were both excellent. Probably my favorite of the 2 might have been Lovecraft Country. I haven't seen any of the series yet. I don't have HBO, but I really like the book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The show does some fun things with the stuff that's in the book. I think ultimately, if you love the book is stronger in total than the show. Mm-hmm. But the show does some pretty fantastic stuff.
I think just like you, Nathan, said on the podcast, I was unprepared that it was like an anthology.
Oh, sure.
So as soon as it switched over the first time to being a different setting and starting fresh, I was like, oh, we're not continuing anymore. Okay. But I enjoyed that along the way. I enjoyed each of the stories, and it was I thought it was scary at certain parts too, especially that the part with the doll that came to life, or the
spoilers.
Well, what they do in right, Blake?
Yeah.
The doll gets subbed out for the twins, what they do, Beckley, if you do get around to watching the series, that slice of the story that they adapt for the show is terrifying. It's
probably the single best thing on the show.
Okay.
Yeah,
like
it's excellent.
Yeah,
I look forward to that sometime.
Yeah, Vera, you got any?
Did it have to come out in 2020 or just something I watched?
No, yeah, something you watched.
Because I have almost no recollection of the first half of the year, so I'm gonna go with. I've been rewatching Scrubs, which is one of my favorite TV shows of all time, because I've been listening to Scrubs Rewatch podcast, and it feels like home watching it. So it made me happy that that's a thing that happened this year, and I watched it.
Do you play Steak in your home? Is that the game?
Hide the Saltine. It's a great game.
Sure.
Oh man, I need to watch that again, just like you. It's been a long time.
That man, it's been, I think, since the first run of that show that I watched any of it.
Yes,
all right, Jacob, you're up, sir. You rolled a 7. I don't think you've had this. Tell us one of your likes or dislikes from Invisible Man. Do you have that one?
I did not.
Okay. Something you liked or didn't like about Invisible Man.
I'm allowed to repeat what others have said.
Sure.
Absolutely. I mean, definitely that restaurant scene. I think I probably shouted out loud when that cut was made.
Did you see it in the theater or at home?
No.
Yeah. Yeah, that was that. I did sneak away to go see it. That was my last theater film.
I think that was almost going to be my last film, but then just decided I'm not going out there.
Well, it was gonna it had to be that for me because the previous theater film was the Harley Quinn film, which was not how I wanted to end the year in the theater.
That's the last one I saw.
Oh yeah,
Oh.
it's fair. It's not awful, but it's fair. All right, who is next? It's Reed. Reed, you are up. Party game number 10. Reed, this is very appropriate. What is, Reed, a favorite Fear of God series episode or conversation that meant something to you this year? No pressure. I'm right here.
No. It's difficult to boil it down because there've been a lot of moments. Everybody on this call right now and everybody listening to it probably knows that in many ways the conversations that we get to have help keep me sane. They help encourage me. And so there's a lot of times where just through the course of it, it can mean a profound deal to me just with what I'm trying to work out in my own heart and mind. That having been said, I can remember I texted it, and I know Ian will hear this, but I can remember texting you and he after we discussed Avengers Endgame. And I can remember thinking, this is just a popcorn Marvel movie, and the things that the opportunity to get to have a conversation like that with two dear friends and be able to take this silly superhero popcorn movie and then be able to explode it out and have resonances of learning how to lose and coping with loss, but also the promise and hope of restoration and all of the things that come with it. And we layered on so much in that film that still echoes in my heart and reminds me, even little observations that we made that I won't repeat now because listeners can go back and hear it. But that specific conversation about Avengers Endgame, I remember when it was over, I texted you both and I was like, I feel distinctly very fortunate to have been able to have a conversation like that about a movie like that in a time like this and in a season like this. And that meant a tremendous amount to me. The fact that it was the epilogue, if you will, the coda to In the Morning, and all that we unpacked and all that we walked through that series, but specifically our observations in Endgame still mean a profound amount to me. So yes.
That's awesome. Thank you for that. That was a very meaningful conversation, and in general, time on the fear of God this year. I want us to address the "what are you looking forward to" question, and then I think after that, I will open us up a little bit to a little more dialogue about the film. If there's anything left on the table specific to the movie, I would say in general, let's maybe limit it to, okay, here's one or two scares or likes, dislikes that I wanted to throw in. Or if you have something super burning on the thematic idea that feels worthy of conversation, slightly being mindful of the time that is. And then Reed, if you'll wrap us up after that into the FoG meter. So Blake, I'm starting with you because we're just going in sequence. What is something you're looking forward to?
I mean, it's going to be directly tied to my son. And that's just in the coming years in general. It's weird because it's both, I'm looking forward to it and deeply terrified about it.
Sure.
Just being a father, learning a new skill, basically. So, yeah, it's going to be a probably an adventure that's going to stretch me in a lot of ways. And I hope that it exposes some of my worst elements and like exposes them in order to make me a better person, make me a better father. And I just hope I don't mess that kid up any more than I have to. So,
well, good luck with that.
Yeah.
Every now and then my kid does something. I'm like, oh my God, I'm so frustrated with you. Oh my God, you're doing the exact same thing I would do if I were you. Oh my God, what's wrong with me? Oh my God. Yeah. That'll happen.
You do something and you're like, whoops, that's
sorry, kid. Yeah.
One of my other friends told me that all the things that you end up noticing about your kid when they're older, that like their worst traits, it's too late to change it at that point. So you're just like,
But they're best traits too. Come on, this is a
of course.
It's a look forward to thing. Yes. All right, Andy, what is something you are looking forward to?
I'm gonna piggyback off of Blake and looking forward to his son.
My two dads.
No, yeah, I'm looking forward to like just Milo growing. It's been a great year. I mean, he was born last year in August, and he's getting to the point where he took his first steps a week ago, and he's growing into like a little person. He's always been a little person, but like he can be a jerk and he can be terrible, but like I love it. I love that he throws his food when he's tired of it, just slings it off that table and says, "I'm done." But then he's
got
really
that
sweet
from you, right?
Yeah. That's my bad trait. Ask Margaret. But I also enjoy the time where like he's up at 3 and he's teething and he's not awake and he can't sleep, and so we stay up watching like Frozen 2 or Moana, and he don't understand it, but he's to the point where he won't snuggle unless TV's on, so we get that little snuggle time. So I'm looking forward to more movie sharing and snuggling and watching him grow. Awesome. And Blake's child growing along too.
Both of those things will happen. Vera, what is something you are looking forward to?
I love my kids and I look forward to blah, blah, blah kids. I love them, but I'm going to pivot a little bit.
You can tell the older parents in the party. It's like, God,
true.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to them leaving home.
3 of them. There's just so many of them.
Yes.
I just herd cats all day. That's what I do. It's basically the same thing. I look forward to seeing my grandparents again. When this vaccine gets rolled out and we can see people that live in old folks' homes and stuff. I miss them, and I really look forward to seeing them again, and hopefully that can happen soon.
Yeah, that's a good one. Stephen, what about you, sir?
I'm looking forward to going to a few crowded places, even though when we were in normal times, I'm not the kind of person that loves going to crowded places. But, I like going to public places, like into the city near me, into Philadelphia, and going to historic sites and museums and on a busy street. But now I don't feel safe doing that. Or even looking forward to like theaters and places where you sit in an audience. Or sharing an unmasked smile with somebody, or a hug.
Yeah, absolutely. What about you? What's something you're looking forward to?
Me?
Yep.
I'm looking forward to releasing my band's album that I've been working on for a long, long time.
Hey.
Yeah.
The music was finished a long time ago, but I've somehow managed to stretch out the album jacket art into a 2.5 year plus process, which is kind of insane, and it's a real psychological burden. I've let perfect be the enemy of the good. But I need to wrap it up.
So does your band not pay as well as Fear of God for art? So is the release scheduled? Like when you say you're looking forward to it, is that just still pie in the sky, or like it's on track?
I mean, I still have to finish that artwork, but I mean, I've had it test pressings at the vinyl factory.
Nice.
So it'll be like 3 years ago in February, I think, that I got the test pressings. So yeah.
We'll finish that art because we want to hear some musical stylings of Jacob Hunt.
What's your band's name?
Tracer Matula. If I had a thing with the name written on it.
It's all good. Or find it if you got one.
Is that
Tracer Matula.
Yeah, perfect. So now I guess a question as people are hearing this, is music available from previous things? Like could someone go listen to some Tracer Matula if they wanted to?
I mean, yeah, if you go to tracermatula.com, it'll redirect to the Bandcamp, and there's some songs that are on the actual album. So
that's awesome.
It's partially released for streaming.
That's exciting. I'm looking forward to that for you on your behalf. And
Absolutely.
now I know how to text you occasionally, be like, "Hey man, you finished that art yet?"
Did you do the cover art for all
Buy
the
it
albums?
What?
Did you do the
Yeah.
cover
Buy
art
it
for
on
all
our
the albums?
Friday. Sorry.
Wait. Okay. Steven, you first.
What'd you say?
I saw on the website there was previous cover art. I just wondered if you did the cover art for all the albums.
For my band?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've done all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I like the one with the monster chasing the other person. The person there. Yeah.
That
Jacob's
was the
little less.
original planned cover, just one illustration. But the thing that's kind of taken me forever is that I decided to scrap that album cover concept and make a 40-ish panel comic that tied into the lyrics of the album, and that took
is
a lot of
ambitious. Yeah.
it was pretty ambitious, and now I'm coloring it, and it's a lot of colors. And
Well, that's exciting. I want to see this when it's finished. So make it happen in 21. See, now that's my answer.
send you a
to the question.
preview.
I'm not looking
I'll
forward
send
to.
you a preview.
Okay, yeah, you do that. Reed, what is something you're looking forward to?
Well, before we move to my question, I called on Steven, but I know Andy
I'm
was
sorry.
trying to say something at the same
I'm sorry.
time. Andy, did you have a question for Jacob, or were you just making a funny?
No, I was just saying buy it on a Friday because on Bandcamp all the money goes to the artists.
Wow.
Well, hey, there you go. Good to know.
Right.
So I'm just trying to get him some cash.
Yeah,
That's right.
for sure.
We all need it.
Hopefully there will be a Bandcamp Friday in 2021 that I can sync my album release to.
That'd be awesome. Yeah, keep us up to date. Now, Riri, what are you looking forward to?
Sure. I really, since the moment, because what our guests may not know, listeners definitely don't know, is that Nathan did not tell me these questions beforehand. So I was as in the dark as what was on his list of questions as any of the rest of the participants would be. So I didn't know that question was on there. And to be honest, I was struggling for the past few minutes to figure out exactly what I'm looking forward to. Because everything that people have mentioned is definitely something that's big in my heart. Obviously, I have a son. I'm looking forward to continuing to see him grow. Love my wife. I'm looking forward to our years ahead. I am looking forward to what was mentioned by both Vera and Beckley on just getting to see family members again, getting to see people again, getting to go do something that was normal again. But if I had to be honest about what my real answer is, and I am not, I swear to God, everybody, I'm not trying to be poetic or anything. My answer is I'm just looking forward to tomorrow. And the reason that I say it that way is because so many of the things that this year has put us through is so one day at a time, is so just like piece by piece. Listeners to the show on any degree know like the issues that I've sometimes raised and sometimes wrestled with, both happening in the social world, the political world, the church world, the familial world, all of that kind of thing. And I really have reached this place, and it is my most honest answer to your question. I don't, again, it feels like I'm trying to be pretentious and poetic, but it is my most honest answer to your question that I'm just looking forward to tomorrow. I'm waking up tomorrow and gonna do my best with tomorrow, and gonna do my best by the people around me tomorrow. And I'm gonna, as the scripture encourages us, and I feel like citing to myself on repeat these days because of work stress and social stress and all this other stuff, just letting the day's own trouble be sufficient for the day and looking forward to tomorrow. So you asked me what I'm looking forward to.
I can
that
dig
is my
that.
answer.
And now I want Jacob to grab one of those guitars off his back wall and start singing tomorrow or something. What am I looking forward to? So I've got a lofty, a superficial, and one in the middle. But she got much back. Wow. The superficial is WandaVision. I mean, come on, where are my MCU heads at? Because
Like,
my
come on,
God,
people.
we've got WandaVision coming and Loki and all the rest. Falcon and Winter Soldiers. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to the Mandalorian season finale tomorrow. I'm looking forward to it. Okay,
That's
when
great.
we're recording.
I'm excited.
So that is the superficial, although there's something embedded in just actually looking forward to something. My job has me acting with people in small doses routinely. In other words, just one or two people at a time. And so it is a sales environment, but it is interactive, it is present, and there's already just a weirdness about what I do when I talk to people and try to get them to buy a thing I'm trying to get them to buy and blah blah blah. But the added patina of reduced interaction is that much more profound in that scenario, and something that has just been on my heart and I think has been echoed by a couple of you in certain articulations so far is just unburdened togetherness feels really nice right now. Just the sense of communal engagement that does not have to be over. I mean, y'all, like I am the guy who put his foot down a little bit with my family's Thanksgiving and made, kind of brought some awkwardness into it because of that and all of that. So like I'm feeling it. And those scenarios are rough and difficult and challenging, and I'm just ready to just hang out and kind of engage on a human level again in a way that isn't forced and fabricated. And that's my superficial, that's my big, and the one somewhere in the middle is I didn't realize how much I missed this thing until are any of you familiar with the Netflix Song Exploder? Have you seen this at all?
Podcast.
I didn't know it was a podcast.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's a podcast.
I listened to the podcast.
The podcast
Okay,
is
cool.
what I know, not the Netflix show yet. Yeah.
Anybody else want the exact same thing? So turns out there's a podcast called Song Exploder that they made into a Netflix show. Well, see, I haven't watched much to any of it. My wife and I watched the Wait for It from season 1, which is magical. But season 2 just released and features one of my all-time favorite bands, The Killers, and highlights specifically their song When You Were Young. And guys, I didn't even watch the episode. I got 5 minutes into it because it was Invisible Man. I was like, I gotta watch Invisible Man. Oh, The Killers on Song Exploder. So like 5 minutes into it, and it shows this rock show of one of my favorite bands and one of their best guitar licks. And I was like, oh my God, I just got hit with a jolt of lightning and want to go stand in a giant crowd and sing my heart out at a rock show or something like it, some sort of communal experience of celebration and joy. And damn, I missed that. In fact, this year I was going to go see The Killers. I was going to go see David Gray. I was going to see some of these artists that I love, and that is not happening. But so that is something I am looking forward to. I do want, in the spirit of those who may have just randomly tuned in to their very first Fear of God episode, interested in the Invisible Man, I do want to round robin one more go. Just pick a thing that's on your Invisible Man list that you didn't offer up. Just one in the interest of time. It might be a like, a dislike, a scare, or a thematic notion. I don't want to curtail if what someone says causes you to want to say something in response. So please do that. But we'll go around one more time and then wrap us. So Blake, is there anything left on your Invisible Man list that you really thought, hey man, I love this or dislike that or got joined Poop Club over this?
Well, funny enough, I haven't really said anything about Invisible Man tonight. So I would say that I went into the movie not expecting a whole lot and coming out of it really loving it.
Awesome.
With all the caveats of, the stuff that has already been mentioned and whatnot. But yeah, I was blown away at how much I really enjoyed.
Was your first viewing for this?
No, actually I saw it. So it was one of the ones I saw in theaters.
Okay.
No, it was one that I didn't go the first week because I couldn't quite get myself to do it. There was other movies I wanted to see more. And then finally I I bit the bullet, and I was glad that I did. So
cool. Awesome. Thank you. Andy, what's something else on your Invisible Man list you want to throw out?
Elizabeth Moss was greatly cast, and I thought she did a wonderful job.
She did.
She's crazy good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she's amazing.
It's wild.
Old Peggy.
Yeah.
Old Peggy.
Vera, what is something on your Invisible Man list you would like to talk about?
I liked that how for the majority of the film, you never saw her husband's face. Like you kind of saw part of it when he was lying in the bed. But when he attacks her at the car, you don't see it, and you don't so he is pretty much invisible the entire movie without being invisible until they reveal him in the basement. And I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, it's a very smart choice.
It's
in fact,
actually
I
the
saw
actor playing him too, though, even though he's invisible.
Yeah, I saw some of that today where they were talking about how much he was on set, even though he didn't necessarily have to be. Thank you for that, Vera. Steve, I think it's you.
Yeah, I had written down some things that are kind of thematic related to it. This movie is, I guess, different than the past Invisible Man films, or at least the original one, because you're following the victim, and she's like you're to this whole story, but she gives you all the insight into the villain. But there's a lot of people in her life that don't believe her, of course, because it's a strange story. But what you learn about the villain, what you learn about the Adrian character, is that he's kind of has the he's not just invisible, which is his physical characteristic, but he acts like he's invincible.
Mm-hmm.
Like he has invincibility syndrome. And this existed before he even became invisible. So, and that's another difference from the original Invisible Man, is that he had the invincibility syndrome. He was a villain before he ever became invisible. He has a status, he has wealth, he has connections and intelligence, and this gives him his strength and feeds into it, and that allows him to belittle or disconnect the victim. And they want to continue belittling them because it feeds their disorder and his narcissism.
Well, and to your point, I think one of what makes this movie cause all of its faults to watch this become invisible is the brilliance of where they center the story. Like the fact that it is not, and this is me trying to just feed off of what you're saying there, Beckley, is I don't know if you saw this, like this was pitched originally as one more of these stupid Dark Shadows, stupidness, but Depp was originally going to be the Invisible Man. Like, goodness gracious. I didn't read enough to know the intertwining of story development and who exactly was responsible for what, but I think Whannel has a lot of credit here owed to him for the reorienting of the narrative to specifically focus on her. And to the point, I don't know if you caught this, Cecilia was it Greek or Roman? Did anyone see this? On the IMDb page, it talks about the origin of the word Cecilia being to see, and that why they refer to her as C in the movie. It's meant to be SEE, like
wow.
C, invisible, visibility.
That's so obvious, but I didn't get it.
Yeah, same here. That's invisibility there. Okay, awesome. What about, I think Jacob, you are up. Any final Invisible Man thoughts?
I just love a good flick with a woman kicking butt, like in
you got it.
Completely non-exploitive way, like barbed wire or something. I don't know, old movies where
Colombiana,
older girl power type movies, but this is just like a smart woman, like standing up to the dude.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Reed, any other?
So this is not intending to widen the net on conversation, but I'm surprised it hasn't come up yet. So I'm glad that I'm able to sort of articulate it. One of my favorite aspects of the film, you touched on it a little bit when you said they centered it around her. One of the most impressive things about it to me is how it is this exploration of gaslighting and the ways that he manipulates the situation to make her look crazy, to make her feel crazy, and to make the people around her completely just separate. And it's frustrating in a way. I casually comment to my wife whenever this happens in a movie or TV show that we're watching, where I talk about when characters in a show or movie do things relationally, like they react to certain stigma in ways that defy the relationship. I'm like, why in the world wouldn't you just call, for instance, the sister? When the sister receives that email, with people in my family that I'm not on great terms with, if I received an email, my first call would be like, what's up with this? Was this you? Is this a hacker? Is it what happened? But instead, she just immediately goes to, I now finally know exactly what you think of me, and like slams the door. And I'm like, oh my God. But what's weird is
that why you asked me that time if I was a hacker? Is it because it was in response to that thing I sent you? Yeah.
It was all based on that, which I still haven't forgiven you for, but here we are.
Right.
But here we are.
Like,
but then, and I'm not trying to get too heavy right now. At least I'm not trying to. But then 2020 has shown me things I did not want to see about the way a massive amount of people can be manipulated to believe blatant falsehoods. And I'll just kind of leave that right there. and the way that people can be can be so easily coerced, convinced, and what she experiences is not merely just a fight for her survival, but it's also for her sanity and for her agency. And I found that very, very compelling, far more compelling than the admittedly very effective sort of scares surrounding his invisibility and the very cleverly sort of orchestrated shots. That aspect of how he is piece by piece sort of manipulating and effectively making her look more and more insane, to the degree that she begins, until she finally finds the evidence of her own finding like the things in the attic and stuff like that. Until that happens, she truly is wrestling with thinking that she might be going insane, even though she's convinced, like, no, he's still alive and he's still doing this thing. It was just really compelling to me, and I found that to be one of the most interesting elements of the film, is the way that we ourselves, I feel like, and maybe this will be my bumper sticker ending on my thoughts on it, is just I feel like it can be an exercise in recognizing how we need to learn how to trust each other a little bit more, and learn how to do a little bit more like critical thinking, not in terms of just automatically accepting impossible things, but really just receiving evidence, receiving what the people who tell us, trust us. One of my favorite moments in the movie is before he kind of doubts her and disbelieves her, is when her friend is sitting in front of Adrian's brother, and Adrian's, and she's with him, Cecilia's with him, and she's about to say, what's his name?
James.
And Cecilia's about to express it, and he leans forward and he's like, yeah, I don't know why we're here, but she's my friend and you need to listen to what she has to say and show some respect. I loved that moment, because I was like, yeah, that's the kind of relationship that you really need in a moment like that, is for somebody to have your back, for somebody to just be with you in it. And that's the kind of thing that it can kind of foster thought about. So anyway, it hadn't come up directly, but that's
well. And as the last of this little parade on this question here, to me, one of the most profound things about this movie, you mentioned James, is the actor Aldous Hodges' triceps. Those are not invisible. Not at all.
Although he didn't use them very well when he was in that hallway scene. I was like, yeah.
I mean,
that guy's half his size.
Yeah.
Come on, where's your windmill, man? That guy's half your size.
Well, and it's the brother too, who's already weaselly. Like he could have just
come on,
broken that suit, and he could have crushed him. But I do want to piggyback a little bit on what you're saying, Reed, because it's these layers and levels of the invisibility idea that got brushed up to by Blake a minute ago or 30 minutes ago, whatever. Because there's invisibility used as power wielding and weaponized invisibility, and then there's also rendering others invisible. in the abuse of power, in the gaslighting of power. And I'm going to share this little anecdote real quick, and then we can move out into wrapping up, Reed. But I had a really, I'm hesitant to use the word profound. That might be importing more significance to it than there was, but it was a really significant ping in my sort of thinking and spirit this evening. So before our time together this evening, one of my last sort of work appointments was with, again, so this, I do kind of in-home sales times, and it was with a gentleman in a rural area who is a policeman. And y'all, I'm in relatively sympathetic company here, but when I walked in, on the giant TV was Newsmax, right? Okay. Not Fox News, like just further down the line.
I don't know what Newsmax is.
Well,
oh yeah, be grateful.
Yeah. It's
okay.
Yeah. I mean,
for the interest of us.
I love us, and I love us, and I think we're really good at what we do. But imagine if we were considered valid news, like our lo-fi production here, like it's that level. Like while I'm watching it, there's blurry lines happening occasionally. Like
when
you
people
guys
say other sources, like it's probably.
Oh yeah. But my intention is not to pick on that. My intention is to describe the scene, and this is the New Year's Eve. This is a culminating conversation. Anyone who's listened to this show long understands my perspective often, and how I can be vocal about it. So I walk into that scenario. And what you don't know too is in our general area, there have been several cops killed in the last week, at least 2 that I can know of. So that's what I'm walking into. And it's so interesting to me, and Reed, you bring this up, this gaslighting notion, and this way power is wielded to impose narrative that is false, and how in this weird thing where I'm trying and succeeding, but trying to be, to not be me, right? Like you.
Uh-oh.
It's okay. Bear with it.
Worst possible time.
I know. We made it a very, very long time.
Don't leave us hanging.
I'm in sort of a different scenario for me in meeting with this person, but the longer I was there, the more I just warmed up to this human, right? And Reed, you and I mentioned a couple weeks ago, it came up in conversation, the Brene Brown quote, "You can't hate people up close." And what's coming to me is this invisibility idea, and how, don't get me wrong, I actively work to not hate anyone at all, but in a ideological scenario, me and this other person were ideologically at odds if we were to start unpacking some of together, right? But the more I just sort of hung out with the person, the more I was like, my God, how terrible we've been, and the things we feed each other about other people who are sort of ideologically different or whatever. And I don't know, it just had this real profound effect on me of like wanting to check the times when maybe I buy in harder on things that are skewed or not fully truthful and beautiful, because to me, if it's not beautiful, it also therefore is not true. So at the same time, being able to name, okay, this is a thing that's influencing you. And anyway, just to your point, Reed, about gaslighting, invisibility, these notions that will, to put a very fine bow on this, that are just invisible to us until you force yourself to start seeing, okay, there's a whole lot of noise happening around this person and this world and this whatever right now. Somehow we have to shut that noise off. Somehow. I don't have that answer yet, but somehow we have to shut it off, because at least in that scenario describing, I had to engage this person as a human, or it was just going to be a failed experience or whatever. But I don't know, that may not have landed quite in the way I anticipated. What, Reed?
I almost answered your question of what are you looking forward to? And it's funny because I was not thinking of Invisible Man. when I was about to answer. I almost answered, I'm looking forward to seeing each other again. And that is not me trying to be a pun.
Sure.
I'm looking forward to actually like seeing things for as they are and seeing each other again. That's like I'm very, very much looking forward to that. And I think that is something that we have to your point, we have to fight against the invisible, the quote unquote invisible things around us that are manipulating the situation for their own ends and purposes.
Well, I'm gonna let Reed take us into the fog meter and on into the sunset. But regardless, foggers, friends, thank you so much for being on board and broadly speaking with Fear of God and specifically speaking with this conversation.
Absolutely.
I think Vera had something to say.
Oh, did you? Were you trying to raise your hand? Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. No, I was like, it's not super important. But you had mentioned James. Is that his name?
Yes, Aldous Hodge. Mm-hmm.
Yes. And I think that he is like the anti-Adrian of the movie. Whereas like Adrian is like how like you can be corrupt and power corrupts you and used for evil and gaslighting. And he is a really great example of a strong male. You mentioned his muscles, but like physically strong male, who is a wonderful friend. And even though he doesn't believe her the whole time, like he still lets her speak what she needs to say. And even when he's a great father, protective of his daughter, and even when he's doing that, he is using vocabulary with her that is like firm, but also like gentle and like, and I think that he's a great example that we don't see too often of a very strong, competent male friend. And I think it was just a good example to look at, and the opposite of the way invisibility can corrupt you. Like he's very visible and there and present.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more. I love the interactions early on, like when he's just sheltering her. That's all it is. You know, like it's just a trusted friend who's giving her a place to crash. And I do love how just open-hearted that whole thing is. And he's I just love the way you put it. Yeah, it's really quite an impressive and wonderful thing to see. And unfortunately a rarity for a character like that. Like more often than not, you know, that would have been like another, you know, female friend, or it would have been some other, you know, context so that everybody's in distress. But no, we present a direct counterpoint to the oppressive force that she's trying to escape from. So no, that's a really, really cogent point. So yeah, what we're going to do now is go into the fog meter, and we're going to do it a little bit differently than we normally do. Normally, we go around and we sort of, Nathan and I sort of feel our way through our ratings as we're making our way through it. What I'm going to do this time around, which is a little different, is I'm going to call on individuals. We're going to go in roughly the same order Nathan's been going in. We're going to call on individuals. Give me your fear measurement and your God measurement. If you want to make a statement or so, then you can just, you know, try to keep it sort of compact. But I want you to give me your fear measurement very specifically and your God measurement for it, because fear and God is our very specific metric, the scares and the substance, if you will. So I'm going to be tallying up the numbers to do the math, and I'm going to go very first to Blake. Blake, for Leigh Whannell's Invisible Man, what is your fear score and your God score?
I think for my fear score, there's a thing about accessibility in horror that often kind of bounces it away from being truly scary, and in the ways that at least I appreciate and I'm affected by. So I'm not going to be as high on the fear side, but I'm still going to give it a 6. And then for the God score, I mean, I think the gaslighting is very much text that's on the screen. It's the quote unquote Me Too horror film. I think a lot of people kind of notated that when it came out. But I think some of the larger questions that we've kind of talked about tonight are present, but they're not necessarily essential to the movie themselves itself, or at least the kind of the wider, more ambiguous elements of it. there's examples of those things in it. So but I still think it's got a lot to discuss and I mean, talk about a topic that needs more discussion in general. Just treating women with respect. I mean, seems so simple. And yet, so yeah, for that, I'm going to give it a solid 7.
All right. Strong showing there, sir. Andy, I'm coming to you next. Andy, give me your fear score and your God score. And if you want to, say a word or two about it.
Fear score is an 8. Because it was accessible, it was surprising, and I enjoyed it. And my God score, I'd give like a 9. Because I could see just in what Blake said. So
I agree with what y'all are saying.
I disagree with what you're saying.
No, very, very nice. Very nice. Vera, I'm coming to you next. Your fear score and your God score.
For fear, I'm going to go with a 6. I think it was not so much a scary movie, but more of a really tense and intense movie. But like that beginning part and the restaurant part, I think bring it up in the scary factor a bit. And then for the God factor, I'm going to go in the middle and go 8. Because
right.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is there. I don't know how much they thought about it and fleshed it out, but it's there and it sparked some great discussion.
Absolutely. No. Very much agree. Beckley, coming to you next, and fear score and God score.
Okay. I'll give it an 8 for the fear factor. I think it was very tense and thrilling, and a lot of those periods where the camera pans and you don't see anything. I think that it's very scary just to not see anything and be expecting something. I think I give it an 8 and not a 10. Maybe it docked a few points because I think being compelled to question the logic sometimes derails the fear factor, as does like the pacing in the movie seeming too long. And I think not knowing if he's around was suspenseful, and Moss's performance really elevates the scariness too. She really did a great job. And the God factor, I'll give it a 9. I think there is a lot to explore with, like I said, the narcissism and the way the villain controls people, controls her, and the paranoia from the victim's point of view. So there's a lot to explore there. So I'll give it a 9.
Awesome. Jacob, coming to you next. Fear factor and God factor.
I'll give it a 7 on the fear factor. I definitely felt it leaned more towards thriller as opposed to frightening. So, great thrills, but more of a 7 on the fear. And I'll give it a 9 on the God factor. I thought the movie just had a ton of substance, and I just really love it when a genre movie has that to it. Yeah.
Right. So. Definitely, absolutely had a lot on its mind. I'm kind of rounding where everybody else is. I'm gonna lean with an 8 on the fear factor. I feel like the sequences that work really well are super tense and remain super tense even on repeat viewings. And I think a first time viewing it can be really quite harrowing. And I think it has got a lot on its mind. I think where its logics sort of break down are just in the logistics, but I feel like the things it's scratching at and the way it tries to unpack them in a really effective thriller are quite strong indeed. I'm also going to give it an 8 on the God factor for that reason myself. Nathan, why don't you give us your scores and we'll see where it winds up. Fear and God.
On the fear measurement, I think I'm going to go based on my first viewing and based on watching it the second time with my wife. Like it feels like an 8. Like I would agree. It isn't any movie like this that's a thriller rooted in suspense is going to have some diminishing returns on subsequent viewings, but you can't kind of simply shirk aside the strength of that sort of first experience and even in my case the second one. But so I'm gonna, what did I say, an 8 on God factor. I think It's stronger than I thought I would land at, but I think it's an 8. I think other movies should be jealous of what they stumbled into with this. Like in a world of remakes, rehashes, and garbage, they nailed it. They you know, there are things we can quibble with, and sure, I wish it were maybe about, but I wouldn't even say explicitly what I would cut. It just starts to drag a little bit towards the end. But in terms of just ingenuity and innovating on a thing, especially, I didn't even see it, so yes, I am knocking something I haven't seen, especially in light of stupid things like The Mummy. Like, give me a break, man. You know, you're looking for bombastic spectacle.
Tom Cruise or Brendan Fraser?
I'm referring to the Dark Shadows Mummy, you know, the Tom
Dark
Cruise
universe.
version. But point being, it just proves that it isn't bombast and spectacle that makes for a good film. It's something rooted in real dynamic relationships that we can latch onto, and I think it nails it from that standpoint.
Absolutely. No, I wholeheartedly agree. And that means that we collectively give The Invisible Man, written and directed by Leigh Whannel, an 8 out of 10 on the FoG meter. That is quite a strong showing, and definitely high praise, particularly for the rigidity of the FoG meter. But I think we can all just sort of collectively sort of yell out unless we disagree. Group, foggers, friends, do we recommend The Invisible Man?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
just swing your arms around like windmill
and see if anybody's in the room with you. So yes, we definitely recommend collectively The Fear of God, and that, ladies and gentlemen, that brings the final episode of hashtag 2020. And believe it or not, the final episode of The Fear of God for 2020 to a close. It's a little hard to believe that we made it here, but oh, Andy, I see that hand. You want to say something?
No, he's trying to punch whoever's above him or beside him.
That's funny. So no, I mean, seriously, coming to the end of this year, it's a little hard to believe that we made it here. But if there's anything that we've learned doing this show for all these years, it's that, and especially during incredibly challenging years like this one, it's that the only way we can make it is by making it together. And so we have a significant number of people to thank. I want to thank you first and foremost to all of our wonderful FoG staff and crew. Thank you to all of you who are on this show. Thanks, Stephen. Thanks, Vera. Thanks, Andy. Thanks, Jacob. Thanks, Blake. And thank you so much for all that you do for the Fear of God community, for the show, for the website, for social media, and most of all, just for enriching our lives with your friendship in this community. I'm not being superficial when I say it really means the world to us that we get to do this with all of you. It's something that we consider to be special. I want to send a special shout out to our adventurer extraordinaire, Mr. Jeff Hansen, and our beloved little Scrat as well. And to Ian Olson and his alter ego, Ethan, for all of his wisdom and friendship that he's provided on the show. Really appreciate it. We also want to say a really especially big thank you to Meredith Curran, for all of her contributions to the FoG socials and being a recurring guest on the show. She was and always will be our very first Fear of God literary correspondent. She had pivoted her focus intentionally away this year to being a mommy to her new baby and a couple of other special endeavors. And so we support that. We cannot thank her enough for all that she's done for the show. She'll always be part of the FoG family, whether she likes it or not. And I also want to send a special shout out to all of our additional contributors and guests this year, including Bill Oberst Jr., Paula Deming, Matt Ruff, Robin Barr, Noel Manning, Barack Barkhan. Thank you so much for giving your time and coming to be part of the conversation. I also have to say a very, very intentional and special huge thank you to, of course, my continued brother in arms, Mr. Nathan Rouse. I was not expecting to get a little bit emotional here, but just hanging in there every step of the way with me, because this show is just, to some people, it's just a silly podcast, but in many ways, this is a lifeline to remind me that there are friendships and relationships that are really special and important and beautiful in the world, and that's worth holding on to and that's worth preserving. And especially as we try to unpack all the scary crap that goes on around us and finding some hope and faith in the middle of it. And I could not do this show without you, and the endlessly rewarding ways you enrich my life with these conversations, and just in many other ways, just in my life every week. So couldn't do it without you, brother, and I love you very, very much. And so to you, all of our dear listeners, our beloved Fear of God community, whether you're in the Facebook podcast discussion group, on Instagram, or just hanging out with us in your ears, on your commutes, in your living rooms, just taking the time each week to hear what we have to say. It means a lot to us, and you mean a lot to us. I say very sincerely that we love and appreciate you so very much. We hope you all have an incredibly safe and a happy new year. And as we say on every single episode, the fear of God is the beginning of wisdom, but it is not the end of the conversation. And in that spirit, we encourage you to, especially in the new year, fear nothing else and be on your way rejoicing. Thank you again to everybody. We will see you all in 2021. Thanks again.
Thank you, everybody. Happy New Year. All things on.
Thank you all again. Bye, everybody.
All right, team. Thank you for your time, your contributions, your lives, and your friendships. I'm going to end this thing, but Happy New Year. Thank you.
Happy
for
New
being here.
Year.
Happy New Year, everybody. Thank you all so much for your time.
Bye.
Thank you.
Oh, Merry
very, very
Christmas
much.
too.
Oh, yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, yeah.
Merry
That's a
Christmas
thing.
to everybody.
You can't say that anymore, right?
Wow. Beckley getting the eye roll. Like, oh, okay.
Another 5 weeks ago. 5 weeks or so we can say it. Yeah.
Then we're back in hell. All right. Have a great night, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.